You know how you get that feeling where it's time to end something and it's the end of an era, it's the end of some repetitive thing that you've had going on in your life for so long, the end of a relationship, the end of something, but the beginning of something new, something innovative, something beautiful. And that's kind of where I'm at with my life when it comes to what I've been doing as far as exercise goes. For over a decade, I was incredibly loyal to doing hot yoga. And I can't say that I regretted even trying it because it's brought me so much solace and peace in my life, but it's also drained me lately. It has showed me that I can be resilient, but I can also be mindful at the same time. And what I mean by being mindful is I can be self-aware. So in yoga, they tell you that it doesn't matter what the pose looks like. It's just how you feel. And they say this because you don't have to perfect the pose. But in reality, to a degree, it does matter. It matters that you are having the correct form and you are practicing that form correctly, because when you go through the flow and you repeat that incorrect form, you're injuring yourself and you're setting yourself up for failure, for pain, and make no mistake, you won't recognize it from the beginning, but it'll catch up. So what I've essentially learned after having this obsession with hot yoga, and I'll call it an obsession because honestly, that's exclusively what I've done for years, is that you do have to be aware, and sometimes the slow aspect is vital when it comes to things like yoga. Meaning you can do hot yoga and do the poses slow. You don't have to go fast, because being mindful and being self-aware of your form is what's going to matter. And funny enough, I've gone to yoga studios where they have mirrors, and I thought that was odd because the one I go to doesn't have a mirror. But it's important to have the mirror, I think, if there's going to be nobody self-correcting you, walking around or correcting your form, because that form and that poor form will really build up in your body. And so over time, my obsession with yoga has got to the point where I used it as a meditative thing, and I thought that, sitting in the heat and going through these movement poses was helping me. And it was, in a sense, until I got to the burnout phase. And it was kind of like I knew, but I felt FOMO, meaning I didn't want to miss out on the incredible environment and people that I've met through yoga, because I felt like if I stopped going, I'd miss out on these relationships. I'd miss out on these opportunities. And it's really hard as an adult to make friends. And this was my connection, my community, my life. But I really wasn't giving up anything. I was only hurting myself by continuing the process of hot yoga because it was draining me of my electrolytes. I was probably had such a huge imbalance in electrolytes that it wasn't even funny, because I was always drained. I had this chronic pain. I had this nagging, I don't even know how to explain it, but it felt so intense, and it was in my upper back and hips and my knees, and I thought it was normal. I accepted it. I said, maybe this is because I'm getting older, but in reality, it was because I spent so much time doing these repetitive poses, and it eventually caught up to me. And did I have correct form for them? Probably not. And that's because hot yoga pushes you, especially vinyasa flow, pushes you to go through these motions. And where I was going, it was so fast. It was so intense. And you don't have to keep up with the flow, but normally the teacher will dictate the pace and you'll want to catch up. You don't have to. Yoga's about doing your own thing, but essentially you feel like this. It's back to the FOMO thing. You'll feel like this need to do it because other people around you are. And when you get to that point and you have this chronic and nagging pain, you really think that maybe it's not the yoga. Maybe it's not this hot yoga I'm doing every day, and it's something else that's bothering me. But the thing is, it's always going to be the thing you're doing repetitively to yourself that's going to make you self-aware. And, honestly, I thought that my resiliency and my discipline to this practice was so important in my life. I felt like my life would come crashing down if I stopped. And I felt that if I did not have this detoxing yoga in my life, it would not be perfect. And it was hard at first, I'm not going to lie. And I know you think it's crazy, it's yoga. How can you become addicted to it? But let me tell you, you can. And I was so empowered by it and so involved in just going to class and being there that I forgot that there's other things in life I can do that would get the same workout in my life and the same toning and the same movements, but not with the wrong form. And so it all started because I had a personal trainer session, and I saw that I had a lot of incorrect form in my life. My upper back was hunched over because I was doing squats wrong. My hips were probably killing me from downward dog and all the stretching because the ligaments overstretch when you're heated. And I was abusing myself because I was repeating these movements with incorrect form on top of doing them so consistently and persistently throughout the week that my body was screaming to stop. And it's now been a week, and I recognize that it's made me more self-aware and made me realize that, yes, I needed to listen to myself a long time ago. And I'm stubborn, I'll admit that. But when it comes to listening to yourself and making changes, it's hard. It's hard to break the habits. It's hard to recognize that you may have an addiction to something. And addiction can come in many forms. But I was missing out on being present when I was doing the hot yoga the past few, I want to say months, years, I don't know. Because I would wake up and I feel so burnt out already. Even after taking a class, I would feel so burnt out because the electrolytes were drained from me. I would hydrate, of course, but it's very hard to catch up once you've drained yourself. So love those. And I hear conflicting things on whether it's detoxing or not. But for me, I told myself, I was like, it's detoxing. I'm detoxing my body. This is why it's so essential. But there's other ways to detox your body besides just hot yoga. And that's what I was missing. So being self-aware and knowing that it was my time to end this consistent practice in my life, maybe I'll revisit it later on, and maybe not as intensely, was really incredible. And just seeing how I could fix the chronic pain I had through correcting my form and practicing these exercises and toning movements the personal trainer showed me was so vital and so revealing. Honestly, it doesn't, it's kind of eye-opening because I was going to the chiropractor, I was getting acupuncture, and I was still in pain, but I was still doing the yoga, of course. And so when I stopped and I, started implementing this in my life, it was eye-opening because I said, I could have stopped this sooner. I could have just gave up a while ago and felt better. I feel energized today. I feel much more aware. I get better sleep. I know some people think it's crazy, but it's true. And now I am doing, I have more energy in my life to do things. And, this goes for anything in someone's life. It's important to be aware of when it comes to an end. It's important to be aware of when you have to take the next step in your life to make change, to innovate yourself, and to be present. And this was holding me back from being present in my life. And I'm not saying I'm giving up yoga that, is not hot yoga, but like surrender, or yoga that is, permanently like slower pace and more focused on the stretching. And, you know, I've just learned that you can't abuse your body. You can't keep going back and expecting a different result when you're doing the same action. You can't expect that. You can't expect different results because patterns happen. And this pattern in my life was relevant. It was so obvious, but sometimes we're so oblivious to this thing, which is why we need mirrors and self-reflection and self-help and life coaches and things in our life to show us that this is the change we need to make. This is the vital, essential moment we need to decide that it's time to move on. It's time to change what we've been doing because we can't ever go back to erase what we did, but we can make the change going forward to feel better, to be a better person, to make yourself a better life. And that's what's so important about this world and failure and becoming self-aware. The important thing is that you have to find a way and hold yourself accountable a certain way. And if that entails me recording myself, exercising to see that I have the correct form, that's what's essential for me. But if it requires you recording yourself to make sure you're doing things correctly when it comes to work, to other things in life, and when it comes to just being a more kind person in this world, you have to be the one to hold yourself accountable a certain way. Find a coach. And all it takes is taking that step and telling yourself that you can become capable, you can make these changes, and you can be present today. Because when you have all this pain, this chronic thing lingering, how can you be present for your family, your friends, your kids, your life? You simply cannot. And that's why it's important to remember that change is a part of this evolution in life, and change is, difficult. If it was easy, we wouldn't be, have these epiphanies and be able to show ourselves grace so easily. And, I thought I was working really hard to keep up with myself physically, but I realized that all I had to do was, go on walks, do some toning, do some weights, and, maybe I'll consider running again. But my thing is, I didn't know how bad my form was, and I didn't know that I could fix this and make all the difference when I'm self-aware. And I know that, you have to make the change. You have to be aware, and you have to be willing to put in the work to be making these adjustments in your life. And these adjustments are so important because they impact everything. It's a ripple effect. So when you don't make the adjustment and impacts you negatively, and adjustments, it's kind of like, what I was saying about yoga, how, if no one's there to correct you or autocorrect your problem, you won't be able to make the adjustment in your pose, your movement, your whatever, your flow. And as a result, you'll keep doing the wrong thing, and your back or your shoulder will come out of alignment. And as a result, you will slowly fall into the trap of one thing impacts the other, and the other impacts the next. And slowly your whole side is slanted, or, it has rippling effects, and your whole body is hurting. So it's very essential to be aware of how one thing can affect another in life. And this goes for relationships, anything. So always be self-aware and be aware of your accountability in life. And know that it's never too late to make the change. It's never too late to become a better person, get rid of the addiction, change the way you view things, and tell yourself this over and over again, because mindset will get you so far in life. Telling yourself you are capable, you're willing to make these changes, and you're willing to feel better. Because what you tell yourself is how you create your reality. So don't ever forget that. And I hope this was inspirational for you, and you are able to go about and make whatever change you need to in today's life, because change is relevant and important. And I, by no means hate yoga. I just feel like taking a break is essential, and I will not fall into that bad habit of becoming exclusively only a part of hot yoga, because my body and what it tells me is so essential and important these days. So if something is so essential and important to you when it comes to this life, being self-aware and knowing when to make this change is important, and listening to yourself internally and to your intuition is vital. Don't miss out on it.